If you have a lot of hypothyroid symptoms, yet your doctor says your thyroid labs look normal, then this video is for you. It's estimated that actually 1 in 5 women have low thyroid function, but sadly, half are walking around with no idea. And it's frustrating for me to hear of so many women going to their doctor, telling their doctor they have all of these thyroid symptoms, asking for testing, and their doctor might only test TSH, maybe T4, and say that their lab results look normal and that it's not a thyroid issue, when in fact, it could actually be a thyroid issue. They're just not doing the right tests. It's also frustrating when I hear women that are on thyroid hormone replacement and yet they're still having all of these symptoms, and the doctor, their only solution is to adjust their dosage. And there's so much more that needs to be addressed to address, again, the root cause of hypothyroidism. You're not going to eliminate your symptoms if you don't address the root cause. And you also need to understand that there's different lab markers that are going to give you the full picture of what's going on. And in conventional medicine, they do not test a full thyroid panel. And unfortunately, in conventional medicine, you're not going to get the right thyroid testing to understand the full picture of what's going on with your thyroid function. So you're going to need to take your thyroid care into your own hands or visit a functional medicine doctor, which can be quite expensive. So I'm here to give you a little education to tell you which thyroid tests you need, exactly how you can order them on your own, and actually from the comfort of your own home. And then if you download my free thyroid testing guide, linked in the description below, you'll be able to learn how to interpret your own lab results as well, according to the optimal ranges and not the so-called normal lab reference ranges. And by the way, in case we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Larissa. I'm a functional nutrition health coach, helping women to eliminate hypothyroidism using a holistic root cause approach. Even if your doctor has told you that you don't need other thyroid testing and that your thyroid is fine, as long as you're not feeling normal and you have at least 3 of the common hypothyroid symptoms, then you need to make sure that you're getting the right testing done. And if you have had the test that I'm going to recommend, then it might be that you're not having the right interpretation of those tests. I want to teach you how to take control of your thyroid health. And the first step is that you need to get the right thyroid labs. Okay, so let's dive in. Which thyroid labs do you need? I recommend starting with a full thyroid panel that includes TSH, free T4, free T3, and thyroid antibodies. So if you're having hypothyroid symptoms, then you're going to want TPO antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies. Most doctors, if they do test antibodies, they're only testing TPO. You really need both because in some cases, you could have only elevated thyroglobulin while TPO is normal. And it's really important to test your antibodies because this is going to tell you if you have Hashimoto's, and this is becoming increasingly common, especially in women. And it can actually, the antibodies can be elevated even before you see TSH or T4 out of range. And so I recommend women to get a full thyroid panel every year, actually regardless of symptoms, because sometimes our symptoms are so subtle and we've just kind of gotten used to them and consider them maybe a normal part of aging, or brush them off as just normal because they're so common and so many people have them. But we really need to listen to our body. So I want to explain a little bit about each of these tests, but again, if you download my thyroid testing guide, I'm going to give you more information so that you can better understand what each of these lab markers mean and how to interpret them. And just a disclaimer, the purpose of this video is not to teach you how to self-diagnose. I don't think diagnosis is important. You don't need to have a label, but you do need to understand if you have suboptimal thyroid function and how to resolve it. TSH is actually a hormone that is released from your pituitary gland in your brain, not the thyroid. And so it's an indirect marker of thyroid function. So it works by a feedback loop, and it is useful, but if it's the only test that's done, it can miss a diagnosis of hypothyroidism. So TSH, if it's elevated, it indicates hypothyroidism, low thyroid function, because essentially it's sensing there's not enough thyroid hormone floating around, and so the pituitary gland releases more TSH to stimulate the thyroid gland to produce more thyroid hormone. But if there's actually too much thyroid hormone, and that would be hyperthyroidism, overactive thyroid, then you're going to see a lower TSH, because the pituitary gland is going to stop releasing as much TSH so that it's not stimulating the thyroid gland to keep releasing the thyroid hormone. So TSH is useful, but not on its own. So if your doctor only tested your TSH, it is not enough because it can miss hypothyroidism. Next, let's talk about T4. So T4 is actually thyroid hormone. So it's released from the thyroid gland. However, it's the inactive form. Our thyroid gland mostly produces T4 and a little bit of T3, and T3 is the active form. The number 4 or 3 just represents how many iodine molecules make up the thyroid hormone. And some doctors will test T4 in addition to TSH, but we really need to also be testing T3, because a lot of individuals have an issue with the conversion from T4 to T3, because for a number of reasons. It could be due to various types of stressors or nutrient deficiencies. And so that's why we really need to also test T3, and that's the one that most often is not tested. And so the other difference is you might see total T3 and free T3, or total T4 and free T4. It's great to have a comprehensive thyroid panel, include all of those, but it's not necessary, at least at first. You want the free T4 and the free T3 because this is the unbound thyroid hormone. Essentially, the total T3 and T4, it represents the bound. It's bound to a protein that transports the thyroid hormone throughout the body so that it can get to where it needs to be without being taken up by the cells. And then when it gets to the cells where it needs to take action, then it's unbound and it becomes the free T4 and free T3. And that's what is most important. So I hope that you're following along, but if this is a little bit too technical, then remember that everything I'm talking about is included in my thyroid testing guide that I've linked in the description below. And again, that's free, so make sure you grab that after finishing this video. Last, let's talk about thyroid antibodies. So antibodies are used to determine if you have autoimmunity. So Hashimoto's is the condition that can cause hypothyroidism. It's estimated that 90% of hypothyroid cases, primary hypothyroidism, are actually caused by Hashimoto's, the autoimmune disease. So then your tissues are being attacked by your own immune system. So your immune system is attacking your thyroid gland, and that affects its ability to produce enough thyroid hormones. And the good thing is that if you detect thyroid antibodies elevated early, you can actually prevent damage of your thyroid gland, because there's a lot that can be done to stop that immune attack on your thyroid. But unfortunately, it's usually tested too late and you already have the damage to your thyroid, and then you'll need to be on thyroid hormone medication for the rest of your life. So I recommend women absolutely test a full thyroid panel, including the antibodies, every year, because you can have thyroid antibodies elevated before you're going to see other markers like the TSH or T4 out of range. So there's one more test that I want to talk about, and that is reverse T3. So reverse T3 is something that we don't want. So it's essentially like a brake pedal for a thyroid. And so T4 can either be converted to free T3 or to reverse T3. And it gets converted more to reverse T3 when there's a lot of stress. And stress is not just emotional stress. Stress can be physical, like inflammation, infection in the body, bacterial overgrowth. There's many different types of stressors. And so that's why a lot of women are put on thyroid hormone replacement, and then they still have hypothyroid symptoms because they're taking a T4 hormone replacement and is not getting converted to the T3. Maybe there are some nutrient deficiencies affecting that conversion, but likely there's also stressors that need to be addressed so that it's not getting shunted to reverse T3. And that's where it's important to really identify the different root causes that are contributing to the thyroid dysfunction. And I do have one other test that I recommend and I use with all my clients, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. In case you're curious, it's called hair tissue mineral analysis, and you can look for other videos about that or reach out to me for information. And that's going to really identify if you have cellular hypothyroidism and give you more clues about root causes. Let's continue and talk about where you can order your full thyroid panel. You have two options. You can either visit a functional medicine doctor, naturopath, or some other alternative integrative medicine practitioner that is willing to order a full thyroid panel, but you're going to have to pay out of pocket. And it's going to be a little bit more expensive than the second option that I have for you. And that is to order it online from a website called Let's Get Checked. And there are other websites for labs that you can order from online, and then you would essentially go to one of their partner labs and you identify one near you and go for the blood draw. But Let's Get Checked is really convenient because you can actually do the blood draw. You'll take it from your finger and do it in the comfort of your own home. It's super easy and painless, and they actually have a nurse that you can do a video call with if you need help. So it's also a really inexpensive option. And I have a discount code for 30% off that you can use. And this includes everything I mentioned, the TSH, the free T4, free T3, and both thyroid antibodies. So that's your first step. Get this full thyroid panel. And your second step is going to be to review my thyroid testing guide, because in that I'm going to give you the optimal reference ranges. Again, don't look at the normal, so-called normal lab reference ranges that are included on your results. You want to look at the optimal ranges that are used by functional medicine doctors, and that's what I've included in my guide. I also include some other really important information in my guide that explains the difference between the conventional and the functional medicine approach to thyroid care, as well as my unique approach. And I highly recommend, I keep saying this, I know, but I really it's such a valuable document. Every woman, every person, but especially every woman needs to know the information that I've included in my thyroid testing guide, because it's just so important to have proper thyroid physiology, because it affects every single cell in our body needs thyroid hormone. And so when you don't have enough, that's why we can have so many different symptoms that are related with hypothyroidism. And I also want to emphasize that you should not wait to visit your doctor and ask them. They will not, unless they make you pay for it, because insurance will not cover it. And again, they have protocols they have to follow. Save yourself time and go online right now to Let's Get Checked and order your full thyroid panel. And if you were interested in testing your reverse T3, then you're gonna have to get that through a different lab. The other one that I recommend is directlabs.com, but it's a little more expensive and you'll have to go to a lab to have your blood drawn, versus Let's Get Checked. You can do it at home, but they do not include reverse T3. Oh, and by the way, Let's Get Checked is operating currently in the US and UK. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment below, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. I reply to every single one of my comments or direct messages personally. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.